Oh, Marantz. From hi-fi icon to hi-fi footnote. If you're my age, when you hear the word Marantz, you think of warm, lush sound, blue lights, silver faces, and that iconic horizontal tuner wheel. Their 70s receivers are some of the most sought-after vintage receivers on eBay or other places. But it ain't all roses and donuts. Things have gotten a little bit worse every year for Marantz, and their history is crazier than you think it is. From American-made legend to private equity-held asset to a healthcare company, and finally a mega corporation. What could possibly go wrong? So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about whether Marantz is just going to be a footnote in audio history. We have got a lot to cover. We got to unpack this history a little bit because this seems to be a reoccurring theme with our favorite hi-fi brands. We're going to talk about how Marantz was an American-born icon and set the stage for what American hi-fi could be. And then it became a Japanese company, a powerhouse of a Japanese company, and then lived alongside blood oximetry smartwatches. And now it's probably going to be slapped on a Bluetooth speaker and a soundbar. Maybe. We don't know. That's speculation. So let's cross our fingers, hope for the best, and go back to the beginning, how it all started. How much time do you think about speakers, amps, turntables? How much time do you think about, well, the razors that you use? I grew up seeing all of the fancy multiple razors coming out, the ones that only worked with that one razor. And now, those things are locked behind glass doors because, well, people steal them because they're $4 a piece. Those $4 razors don't give you as healthy of a shave as ones that use a 10-cent razor. That's why I'm very excited to have Henson Shaving sponsoring today's video. The thing that I love most about Henson razors is that they combine new technology with old school design. 3 simple pieces, all made from aluminum. They use a regular double-edged razor blade that are 10 cents a piece. And if you buy a razor using my link, you'll get 100 of them for free. The insane thing about the disposable razor industry is that they put 2 billion of them into US landfills alone. This right here is their claim to fame, their flagship razor. It's the AL13. It's got a 30-degree angle for the optimal cutting surface. And the razor only sticks out 0.0013 inches past the shaving plane, which is less than the thickness of a human hair. Henson has also teamed up with a bunch of science people that are doing studies on shaving. Henson razors show a lower arrhythmic response, which basically means how much skin irritation you get from a different razor. So, just to wrap this up in a bow, you're getting a high quality product that basically lasts forever from a company that's not trying to sell you the razor blades. It's an independent company where you can actually talk to people. Their products are built to last forever. They're giving you 100 razors for free if you buy the AL13 through the link in the description. And in the long run, this is going to pay for itself probably in the first year. Thank you, Henson Shaving, for sponsoring today's video. Saul Bernard Marantz, born in 1911, New York City. He was a classically trained musician, industrial designer, and audio perfectionist. He was super frustrated with the stuff you could buy to play music at the time, so he decided to make his own. In 1952, Marantz was founded in Queens, and he built his first preamp, the Audio Consolette. And just like all awesome stories he built it in his basement. The reason he built it is because he wanted better control over EQs and levels, because the records back then, they weren't recorded very well. So he had to tweak them to make them sound better. And so he made a product that did that. And he personally made the first 100 units by hand. And starting out, he had no intention of making this into a company. It's just all of his buddies heard it and they wanted them. And then more people heard about them and then they wanted them, especially after they heard them. In 1958, the Model 7 preamplifier came out, which many audiophiles considered to be the holy grail of tube preamps. What really set Marantz apart in the beginning was their no-compromises approach to the products that they made. The design was clean, functional, was beautiful, and Saul controlled everything from how it looked to how it sounded. And there was rigid quality control. Marantz was competing against companies like Macintosh, Fisher, Dynaco, even Heathkit, and ironically, Harman Kardon. But we'll come back to that later. And, well, because gifted designers, people that are obsessive about quality control and the sonics, well, they don't always make a lot of money. Demand was getting high. There was new technology like FM tuners that needed to be integrated, and then there was a bunch of lower cost competitors coming in. And the story's all the same. You have this gifted designer, this revolutionary when it comes to how things should sound. They're not great business people. And so the companies go under or they get bought. And in this case, well, they got bought by Superscope because Marantz couldn't compete with companies like Sansui, Sony, Pioneer, who were coming into America with lower prices and lots of power. Solid state was also emerging as a up-and-coming technology, and they sold to Superscope in 1964. Superscope was not just some weird company. They were a huge distributor, specifically for Sony. But Superscope wanted to start making their own stuff. So they bought Marantz. And it immediately gave Marantz the cash that they needed. Saul stayed on with Superscope for a while. However, because of all the competition, Superscope was put under a lot of pressure to lower the prices. And so it began. Executives started making decisions about how much the product should cost, and fundamentally, as a result of that, what they're going to sound like, and how they're built. And people close to Saul noted that he was disheartened because, and who wouldn't be? It's like you're seeing your baby that you created being made less awesome. That would make anybody sad. So by the late 60s, Saul was gone from Superscope. And after that, he didn't really do much in audio anymore. If he did, put it in the comments, because I couldn't find it in my research. Well, Superscope got Sony'd. Sony was their biggest company that they distributed for, reel-to-reel and cassette. But since it's Sony, they opened up their own American distribution, North American distribution, which was kind of the final nail in the Superscope coffin. And in 1980, Superscope had to sell the rights to Marantz in the non-North American market to Philips. You know, the big Dutch company that helped create the CD with Sony? Because Philips needed a brand to sell a bunch of those CD players that they were about to make. And there was a lot of brand cachet with Marantz. And Marantz did not disappoint with the CD63, which is still a famous CD player today. Superscope was still selling Marantz in the US, but they couldn't keep up and they went under. And in the mid-1980s, Marantz as a whole was owned by Philips. Philips held on to Marantz until 2001 when they spun off the brand to a newly formed Japanese holding company called D&M, which then acquired Denon in 2002, merging the two iconic hi-fi brands under one roof. So Marantz was not an independent company anymore. Really, they hadn't been an independent company for a while. But at least with Superscope, they were the only movie at a single movie theater. And the shift started from kind of a high-end boutique brand to not a high-end boutique brand. D&M Holdings had a whole bunch of brands. Marantz, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Snell. Macintosh Laboratories was owned by D&M Holdings for a while. Under the D&M ownership, Marantz and Denon started to be made at, well, whatever factory would make them at the right price. So manufacturing companies out of China and Southeast Asia started making the mid-tier and lower-tier Marantz and Denon products. And both brands kept their own engineers. So it was still being designed by Marantz and Denon engineers, just not made. The good news is the super high-end reference series is still made in Japan. And it was such a big deal to this company that the Marantz name is still above the doors in this facility, even though Marantz has nothing to do with the ownership. Now, I have to talk about Macintosh because it was owned by D&M Holdings from 2003 to 2012 before it was sold to Finer Sounds, which then sold it to Bose. D&M pretty much left Macintosh alone though, so it was still made in the same factory. So they were pretty much hands off from Macintosh. But they were all sorts of hands-on with Marantz. In 2017, D&M Holdings was purchased by Sound United, another private equity company thing. And they had a whole bunch of other brands like Polk, Definitive Technologies, Bowers and Wilkins, Boston Acoustics, Hios. Lucky for them, they owned Hios. Manufacturing was shifted even more offshore. Engineering started to be reduced and shared. Luckily, Marantz continued to kind of maintain that different sound from Denon. But HDMI boards, DSP, room correction, all of that stuff was shared across Marantz and Denon, and Marantz started to move really hard into home theater and really hard into mass market distribution, and all of that DSP stuff took up a lot of engineering resources. And when you have fewer engineers, well, let's just say that music magic from 2-channel Marantz products was not a high priority for the new Marantz and Denon engineers. None of this was public knowledge as far as revenue growth, market share gains, because it was all private companies. However, it is widely accepted that the Marantz revenue growth was significant under the Sound United ownership. And well, it always is, because that's the only thing private equity wants to do. Build, 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 grow, 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 and then sell, sell, sell. But all that growth came at a cost, and that was brand equity. Marantz wasn't special and unique anymore. You could throw it on top of an espresso machine right next to a PlayStation 3 controller that you bought at Best Buy, because it was at Best Buy now. And just when you thought things couldn't get any worse or stranger, well, Sound United got sold to the strangest chapter in the book of Marantz's history. 2022, Massimo purchases Sound United, which includes Marantz, B&W, Polk, Deftech, all of those brands. It was a healthcare company that made pulse oximeters and other stuff. It's rumored that they were after Hios and some type of multi-room distributed whole home smart Google Home thing, which if anybody's used Hios, they know that is impossible. That's an impossibility. You can barely listen to Elton John over Hios, let alone turn on a light or monitor your vital health statistics. It was a disaster. So immediately, Massimo's stock dropped $5 billion in market share. And if that wasn't bad enough, they spent over $1 billion on all of the Sound United brands. Well, what ensued was a dumpster fire. Multiple hostile takeovers, which resulted in Joe Kiani, I believe his name is, who founded the company and was the CEO of the company, not being the CEO of the company or even working at the company anymore. His legacy was literally destroyed because of Marantz and some other hi-fi brands, and it happened immediately. Massimo couldn't get this off their books fast enough. While all of the hostile takeovers were happening, Massimo created a different P&L. It was a consumer P&L. So they put all of the Sound United stuff and then all of their consumer stuff, like baby monitors, into the same P&L. And they wanted to get rid of it as fast as possible. The problem is they couldn't find anyone to buy it, or at least buy it at the price they wanted to sell it at. But eventually they did find a buyer, and that buyer was... So in 2025, just recently, Harman bought Sound United for $350 million, which is significant. It's a third of what Massimo paid. And it's probably what Massimo should have paid in the beginning, but Massimo should never have bought them in the beginning, because what the heck does Massimo know about a bunch of hi-fi stuff? Now, Denon, Marantz, Polk, and the rest are going to live alongside JBL, Arcam, Mark Levinson, and a bunch of other brands in the giant Samsung machine. Maybe in my next Samsung dryer will have a Marantz setting. Smooth and silky. You pull that towel out and you feel it and you're like, it's nothing like the Marantz setting on my Samsung dryer. And that leads me into what happens with Marantz. Does it become a dryer setting? Probably not. Maybe it's something on your fridge. Introducing the new Samsung Everest 3. The ultimate in home refrigeration and home theater playback. Now with Marantz and Hios technology. So is Marantz going to go back to its roots? Probably not. Are they going to see a fresh injection of engineering cash? Hopefully, but probably not. Maybe more specialized manufacturing? No, zero chance. what's going to happen is Harman's going to look at everything and be like, where can we cut costs? Where can we share resources? Where can we consolidate manufacturing? Let's do that. Can we share enclosures? Can we share switches? Can we cut down on toilet paper costs with this? Probably. This is pure speculation. I have no idea. I haven't talked to anybody, but probably what's going to happen is Marantz is going to be the premium home theater tier at Harman. Maybe the mass market audiophile tier. Who knows? I certainly don't. But if we look at history and look at Infinity, Harman bought them, I believe, in 1983. And what was an iconic home hi-fi brand on its own is now an option on a Kia Sorento. So maybe Marantz will be the step-up option on the Kia Sorento for their awesome audio enjoyment while you're picking up the kids at soccer practice or groceries. But there is one thing that we can count on. One thing we know for sure is Marantz will never be the brand that it was. And to be fair, none of these brands that get bought and sold so many times are ever the company that they once were. From making preamps in the basement in New York City, to Superscope, to Philips, to D&M, to Sound United, to Massimo, and now Harman International. The Marantz brand has eroded. Hopefully it won't be slapped on some Bluetooth speaker or prominently displayed on the back of your next Samsung TV or an option in your premium Infinity SUV. How ironic would that be? That's never gonna happen because Nissan and Infinity, the cars, probably won't be around. Maybe Harman will buy Nissan and then your Infinity could have an Infinity, or if you wanted to pay more, a Marantz. Maybe that'll happen. But all that's left of the Marantz that we knew is a badge on the front of a home theater receiver and a sign above the doors of where this stuff used to be made during its heyday. But maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully I am. If you want to know more about the absolute dumpster fire that was Massimo buying Sound United, I will link that video right here. A lot more details. Thanks so much for watching. So don't binge watch Netflix or Hulu. Binge listen. Have a cup of coffee too. And also sign up for the Cam Coffee Club where you get a fresh new flavor of coffee each month that is roasted fresh. Link in the description. Fingers crossed about Marantz.